That's loud. Okay, step number one when doing a transaction. If you are awesome and on top of your contact database, you might be able to just completely skip this step. But number one is just to add a contact. So the person has to be in your contacts in order to bring them into a transaction. So I'm in my contacts and I'm just going to add kind of a fake person. So I'm going to add contact. At the bare minimum, I say at least name, email, phone number. You do need an email address. Keep in mind, anything you put in here will transfer over into DocuSign. So putting it in here kind of saves you a step. I'm gonna do Melvin because I don't think I have a Melvin. And we'll do buyer today. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Command doesn't really like repeats. So if you put in like repeated email addresses or phone numbers, it usually won't let you save the contact. And I know I already have somebody saved in with our office phone number. So instead of kind of making up one, I'm just gonna leave it like that. But you can, go in and add more information. You can go under additional contact information, add things like their primary home address if you have it. I recommend really just making this as complete as possible, but it is your contact database. So kind of keep that in mind. But name and email will at least get you a good starting point. So I'm going to create. And then get rid of that. Okay, so if you are on a team or if you are in PC, unfortunately, just adding them into your contacts isn't kind of your last step. You do also have to share it with the team. So if I type in Melvin, I just need my little person to show up. If I check him, there's two ways to do this. So you can check him and select bulk action. All the way at the bottom is change account. So if you click on that and you are part of a team or part of PC, it'll give you another option here where you can click it. It'll say like PC coaching A. It's something weird like that. Just choose that and then change account, and then you'll be able to bring him into the opportunity. You can also just open them directly up. And then these three little dots, change account, and it's kind of just a different way to do it. But if you need to change multiple people, like I could select all of these and I could change all of them to the PC account if I needed to. It's just however you want to do it. And if you are on a team, if you click your drop down, you will have another little option of your kind of team account. You can input them directly there. And if you do it that way, you don't have to share with the team. So it's really just kind of however you want to work it. They just have to be shared with the team in order to bring them into a transaction. So I'm going to go about this through the opportunities way. You can also create an opportunity from this contact card. Honestly, from this contact card, you can do a lot. You can add them to a smart plan. I could go into opportunities and just hit create, and I never have to leave the contacts. But I'm going to, just for the sake of like showing you how to do it and showing you kind of what things look like, I'm going to go through the opportunities applet. And when I get in here, you will see that you have a listings pipeline, you have a buyer's pipeline, and then you have a leases pipeline, which you'll probably, never deal with. You can also see your ratio of listings to buyers, your activity, so you can see in what month you have the most kind of going on. And then if you have anything set to close this month, it will pop up down here. That says 9/5, that's a little late, but it should show up there. So if you're a numbers person and you kind of like to know things like this is an awesome place. You can also see your potential income and your probable income. So your potential income being if every single one of these opportunities were to close, this is what I would make. In real estate, that doesn't always happen. So you do have a probable income, so every one of these stages is weighted a little bit differently. So things in the cultivate stage are, I want to say, so depending on what stage, like this one, it's 10% probable to close. But if I go to like my under contract folder, it's weighted 90%. So that just kind of gives you a little bit more realistic. So you can see your potential versus what is a little bit more realistic. And you can see that for both. So my listings versus my buyers. You can see all of these stages. You can actually change these. So these are the default. But if I go into cultivate and I decide I don't like watch, nurture, or hot, I can hit edit stages and I can just change it to something that works for me. And you can also mess with the probability. So if you want them all set to 0, except for under contract, you can do that. I've seen where some people, they use these as like timelines for when they think the contract is going to close, or when they're looking for a house. So instead of watch, nurture, hot, it might be, 12 to 24 months, 6 to 12 months, 0 to 6 months, something like that. Whatever helps you, feel free to change it. If not, just leave it as is. And you can kind of move these around. If all of a sudden this goes to under contract, I can pop it up in here and then it moves itself over there. Move my thing. Okay, so to create a new one, I'm going to hit create opportunity, and it's going to pop up this screen that I have to fill out. So basically from here up, really pay attention to these. You're not going to have options for some of them, but these are things that you cannot change once the opportunity is created. Anything from here down, you can change. So opportunity name down, you have the ability to edit. So it's really not, it's not as important. The market center, if you're only with us, that's going to be the only option. Team, it's usually going to default to that. So PC, or if you are on another team, it'll show that there. Opportunity type is the kind of the first one you really need to pay attention to, whether it be listing or buyer. You cannot change this once it's created, and it does make a difference. So if you choose the wrong one, there's no way to go in and fix it. You have to mark it as lost and create a new one. So I think today I'm doing a buyer. Owner, this is just if you're on a team. Usually, unless you're the rainmaker, it's only going to be your name. Client is where you get to start typing things. So I'm going to type in my guy's name. So Melvin Buyer, and I'm going to choose him. If you get to a point where you are typing in your client's name and you know that he's in your contacts, but they're not popping up, go back and make sure that it has been shared with the team, because it won't let you bring that contact in unless it's been shared. Opportunity name, it's going to default to whoever your contact is, and then buyer versus seller. We always recommend, this is something you can change as the steps go on, but leave it, you can leave it as is. When you get to the point where you know the address, we always recommend changing it to the address. Obviously, if it's a buyer, and sometimes even if it's a potential listing, you're not going to know that address at first, so just leave it there. Custom tags, you can use things like referral, past client, sphere, anything like that to kind of help you keep track of who these people are. So if I said, I wanted to create a buyer custom tag, just type in whatever you want, hit create buyer, and then it'll be in your tags. Estimated close date, if you know that, time frame, budget. And then the one that you really have to put in is commission rate. You can leave these blank because, like I said, you can change them. But for commission rate, I tell everybody just to stick with 3%. It's just for your side. Even if it ends up not being that, you can change it. And then opportunity phase, you don't get to automatically put them in under contract. So you have cultivate, appointment, and active. And then depending on which one I choose here, my stage will be a little bit different. So searching, showing, negotiations for active. Under appointment, you have scheduling, scheduled, kept, and then cultivate was the watch, nurture, hot. So I'm just going to put it in cultivate watch, and we are going to hit create. And then that is going to bring me to my opportunity. So you are going to have an opportunity for every transaction. That's really just how it is. If there is an offer to purchase, you're going to have its own little opportunity. In your general information, this is where you can go back. I can hit edit. Once I know that address name, I can go in and change it to that address. If I know the estimated close date, I can put it in there. If I want to keep track of when my appointment was scheduled, when it actually was, agreement one, contract date, close date, anything like that, you can put it in here. You can also change your commission rate in here as well. And then I showed you the drag and drop method of how to move it from like cultivate to under contract. All of your stages are here. So if I need to bump it to under contract and we're in financing, you can do that from here as well. It's a little bit easier than dragging and dropping. The dragging is, it's a little testy sometimes. I'm gonna put mine back to cultivate. And I didn't actually change anything, so I'm just gonna hit cancel. Your property address, once you know that, you can hit the edit button, type it in and look for it. It does go based off of Google Maps, so keep that in mind. Okay, now it's map. Okay. If you ever need to mark it as lost, or if this is one that this is actually a listing and I put it in as a buyer, I can just toggle this on and it'll remove it from my pipeline. Buyer profile is if they have any app association. There's really nothing to do in this little, I don't even know what to call this, but folder, I guess, but so you probably won't ever have to do anything with that. What you're going to be focused on the most is this documents tab. So this is where most of your kind of work is going to happen. When you first get in here and it's a brand new opportunity, it's going to say to start work with opportunity, please select checklist type first. That's referring to this pick checklist type. If you hover over it, you know, it really drives you back to this pick checklist type, because as you see, you can't really do a whole lot without that. So if I drop down, I have residential, referral for which we will receive payment. And since this is a buyer opportunity, I also have expansion. Only one of our teams is dealing with expansion right now. So if that's not you, you're never going to choose that. Most of the time it will be residential. Referral for which we will receive payment is if you refer something out, like this would be a buyer. If I referred a buyer out and I was expecting a referral check back. This is just to kind of keep track of, you know, your own paperwork. We don't require anything for this, but residential is what it's going to be. And since this is a buyer opportunity, I have a consultation folder. Nothing for compliance is required for that. So that's why there is nothing to input here. This would be if you have things like an about me sheet, anything like that that you keep personally, you could add that in there. If I switch to my under contract folder, this is where all of the familiar forms go. There are some, so like charter title, you can click on and you can get these forms if you need them. They're all, of course, in DocuSign. But if you need a referral agreement, W-9 from our referral form, that's just a blank one, so you can see what it looks like. So anything underlined is an active link, so you can click on it and you can see the document. And then you also have a closed folder. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but really, if you're starting a transaction, this under contract folder is going to be what you're working in the most. If this was a listing, instead of a consultation folder, I would have a listed folder and it would have its own little check sheet. So you do have a few resources in here. So buyer under contract forms in DocuSign order, you can click on this. And this is something that you can print out if you're kind of like a hard copy person and you like checking things off. And you can just check off what all you have as the transaction goes on. You can also see things that are required. So all of these that are marked required, you're going to have. There are things that are optional and then conditional. So you can hover over the I and it'll tell you in what conditions would you need this. So if this is if financing is through FHA or VA. If that doesn't apply, you're not going to have anything there. Those are really your only options. Anything marked with this blue DS means that when I start the room, these forms are going to automatically be added in there. So it's pretty much everything. And then, the thing with command, this is where all of your final documents will be uploaded. Nothing is actually sent for signing through here. It's not possible. Everything has to be sent through DocuSign is what I teach. You have the option to use zip forms as well, or a lot of agents are still paying for .loop. So, you know, you can use any e-signature platform that you want. DocuSign is just what Keller Williams teaches. So I'm going to hit start a transaction. And I have both a DocuSign account and a .loop account tied to my settings. If you only have one, and then that's in your settings. So if you drop down and go to settings, usually DocuSign is at the top. It'll just take you automatically. So I need to get rid of my .loop kind of tie-in just so it automatically goes, but I'm going to choose DocuSign. I'm just going to think for a minute. And it's going to pop open a new tab, which is DocuSign Rims. It will ask you to log in unless you've already logged in. I logged in earlier just to make sure I could get in because, you know, nobody wants to watch me not know my password for 10 minutes. So now it says go to transaction. So whenever I click this, it will always take me into this room. But now that the room is created the proper way, I could just go directly to rooms.docusign.com and find it if that works best for you. You'll see all of these that were marked DS are now in my room. Unfortunately, if I open one up, I'm going to get this message up here. So if you are brand new, you probably do not have a NERDS number. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to access these forms, anything from the NCAR. So if that is the case, talk to Renee if you really need to get a contract out, and she will help you with that. But your NERDS number, we called the association the other day. Once you join the association, which of course you have 30 days after joining us to join, but if you need to get started with contracts immediately, I would maybe not wait the full 30 days on that. But once they get you in the system, it takes 2 to 3 weeks to generate a NERDS number, and then it will just be sent to you automatically. So without that number, you can't really do a whole lot with these forms. It's just we have a direct relation with, I think, NAR now, and it's a new change, so we're kind of still working out the kinks. But if you do have that NERDS number, you can click on your little head, or you might have initials up here. And if you go to preferences, and then it's under integrations, and what you'll do is you'll add provider. It's going to be Realtor, so National Association of Realtors. You'll put your NERDS number in here. If you don't know it, you can click find your NERDS ID, and you can find it using either your last name and your email address, or your last name and your real estate license number. Your last name has to match your license, and it also has to match what is in your room. And then your association, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, is going to be North Carolina Association of Realtors. So once it validates that, you will have access to the forms. If you get in your NERDS number and you completely forget this, call me. I have my own little video. It's like 2 minutes on how to do this. But so it definitely kind of cramps my teaching, just because I can't open things like the working with real estate agents that you would probably be using first. But there is kind of one more important step before you actually start working on these documents. If you come over into the details, you're going to want to hit edit and fill out as much information as you possibly have. So especially things like address, seller 1 if you have one, seller 2 if you have one, buyer 1, buyer 2, whatever you have at the moment, put it in here, because whatever you put in here automatically puts itself on the forms. So I'm just going to, not that I'm making up an address, but I'm going to use the office address. And I'm kind of just going to leave it at that, and I'm going to hit save. But you'll see, since this is a buyer room, my buyer name and my buyer email came over from Command, as well as all of my information came out of my marketing profile in Command. So it just kind of saves you that step. Once you're done with this, we're going to go back to the documents. And from here, you could start working on your working with real estate agents and sending those out. But if you do need to bring in additional forms, because this isn't everything, I'm going to click add, and I'm going to pull from DocuSign forms. And so all of these KW485 I have access to, as well as the Longleaf Pine Realtors. If I look under all buyer forms and placeholders, I don't have access to your typical, NAR forms. Kind of a bummer. But I am going to pull open, I have a company policy. Let me see. Let me just pull a random one. I'm going to pull open just an Atlantic Coast Pipeline disclosure. And add selected. And let's see if this is a good one. Not really. All of our market center forms, they don't really require much filling out, but we're just going to pretend that this is a working with real estate agents. So all of this information came over from my details. So in every single form, it's going to kind of look the same. You'll have these little text blocks, so you can click in them and you're going to fill everything out completely. And then when you're done, you're going to hit save and close. And then let me open up the charter title disclosure. I think all of ours just ask for, so I can put the date in there. So 10/7/2021. And then if you want to check either of these, I don't fill out forms. I'm not licensed. You don't want my advice on this stuff. I have no freaking clue. So that's my preface. So we're going to save and close. And just pretend this is a buyer. We're pretending that I'm sending my working with real estate agents and like my buyer agency agreement. You can send 10 things at once if you want to. You can send one thing at a time. It's really up to you. So I'm going to choose the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. So if you hover over whichever one you want to send, you can check it, and that's going to activate your toolbar. So if I want to send both that and the charter title disclosure, I'm going to check both of those. I could, in theory, send all of these KW 485 ones. It's easier to just pick one at a time, or not that, but me sending 2 forms is the same as sending 6. It's the same process. So in your little toolbar up here, you have a pen. So we're going to create envelope, and that's going to move those 2 documents into this envelope, which is what we actually send for signing. So envelope name, I always recommend naming it something that you can tell what's in it, because as the transaction goes on, you're going to have 15 envelopes and you're not going to know what's in any of them, and it gets a little frustrating. So I literally cannot think and type at the same time. So we'll say working with real estate agents and buyer agency agreement, because that's what we're pretending they are. If I get in here and I realize that I forgot something, I can hit room docs. And if I wanted to bring in the key release, I could check that and bring it in as well. Just keep in mind, you would have already wanted to click on it and have it filled out at this point, but you bring it in. Add recipients to an envelope. So if I click this, if you are using these DocuSign forms, you always want to use pre-tagged roles. And I'll show you kind of the difference it makes. It really does make a difference. This basically, if I click this, in this situation, I have a buyer 1. So I'm going to drop down. I'm going to choose my Melvin. If you have a buyer 2, you can check that as well. But I would have a buyer's agent, which would be myself. And I'm going to add selected. What that does, you'll see when I hit next, that it automatically assigns these people's signatures based on who they are and where they need to sign. So if I were to just do room participants and bring them in, you have to assign all of the signatures yourself. So this definitely saves you a ton of time, basically. So always use pre-tagged roles when it's an option. Something I also recommend, these numbers over here, we're both labeled as 1. So what that means is when I send these off, we're going to get the documents at the same time to sign. I always recommend changing whoever is getting this after you to number 2. So that way I get this and I have to fully sign it before my buyer even knows that it exists. So if I catch something and realize that something's missing, it's a little bit less embarrassing because I can go in and change it and get it resent, and my buyer doesn't have to sign it 17 times. And he thinks I'm not an idiot. So that's good. It's totally up to you, but that's just kind of an insurance policy. You do, when you hit next, you do have another kind of chance to look over things, but this is just adding an extra chance on top of that. Message to all recipients is the email that actually gets sent out. So email subject, email message, whatever you want to say there. So we're going to hit next. And this one isn't going to be that impressive because there's only 2 places or 3 places to sign on here. But these colored little sign and date signed are what the pre-tagged roles put in. So if I weren't using pre-tagged roles, I would get to this step and it would look like this. So I would have to choose, okay, here's my buyer. He needs to sign here, and then we need date signed here. And you would have to do that for every single place that needs a sign. So that's a little not time efficient, especially when the pre-tag rules put them in all for you. So at this stage, you know, whoever is getting this is color coded. So in this case, I'm the buyer's agent, I'm yellow, my buyer one is blue. Sometimes you have purple. I don't really know how many colors or options in here. I guess they figure it out if you have 10 people that need to sign it. So don't worry about that. If I realize that this actually needs to be my buyer, I can just change it pretty easily to my buyer. I don't have to delete it out. Most of these things you will probably never deal with, so do not get overwhelmed by them. What you will probably mostly deal with in here: signature, initial, date signed, maybe name. If you need to add text, you can. If you need to strike through anything, it's now called the line. So I could choose that. And, you know, if that was the old purchase price and I'm adding a new one, I can mark that out, add a text box, sign it. Sometimes I will say it is easier to just go back to the original document, the original form, and just fill it out there. It's a lot less work. But from here, you know, I just make sure that everything that needs to be signed has a place to sign. Date signed if you need it. Everywhere has an initial. Everything is filled out. There are certain forms. I know it's on the buyer agency agreement where you have to choose the designation or whatever, basically dual agency, whatever all of that is. I wouldn't recommend, if you see one, like this has a blue outline, but it's filled in white, this means it's optional. So what happens when they go to sign it, it's going, if you've ever signed anything in DocuSign, like if you filled out your onboarding paperwork, that's through DocuSign, it'll have a start signing. It's going to pull them here. It's going to stop. They're going to hit sign. It's going to pull them here and they're going to have to hit sign. And then they're going to blow right past that because it does not stop there and they don't have to sign it and they can return it back to you unsigned. So at that point, you realize, crap, they didn't fully sign anything. You have to go back and ask them to sign it again. Not all buyers are understanding. I'm sure some are. I hope that you all have buyers that are understanding, but you know, some people don't want to sign things more than once. So at that point, if you have multiple things that are marked that are optional that you get to choose, I would delete out all of the optional and just simply mark the one that they go with as required. Have that conversation ahead of time and know what designation they're going to choose, mark it as required, and just move on. You don't have to go back and get them to sign it again. So once everything's good, you don't have anything optional, you can do recipient preview if you want. It'll just show what it looks like from their point of view, but I'm going to hit send since it is just coming to me and I know that I'm not going to sign it. So it's not going to go to my random email address that I made for my buyer. In the envelope stage, so it's waiting for others. So I can click on it and I can see, okay, well, what's it waiting on? Right now it's waiting on me to sign it. So my buyer one can get it and also sign it. From here, I can resend, I can correct, which takes me just back into the envelope. So I could add in more forms. I could go back to my signing fields if I realize I forgot something. DocuSign doesn't like you to go backwards. Okay. And under more, you have view documents, copy, void, view envelope history. Really, I think what you would deal with in here is resend and correct. You probably won't have to do any of these. So that's the envelope stage. Once it's actually signed, this will turn green. And if I go back into my documents, so I sent those 3 documents. It's going to create a copy of all 3. So I'll have a new line. And instead of form, it's now going to be a PDF. So you won't have the ability to click in it and edit the fields like you do with these forms. But it'll have a green check mark. It'll say signed. And you can still, you know, you can open it up and do things to it. Like if you need to strike through anything, you can do that in the signing stage, but you cannot go back in and like change a purchase price or click on something and change the address pretty easily. That's why I say sometimes it's easier to just go back to these original forms you will always have them in here. Change it on the original form and then just get them to sign it again. So once you start having signed documents, you do have to put them back into your opportunity. So we have access to these rooms. We don't check them. So we don't go in and look at what you're doing in here. What we look at is what you upload in here in your opportunity. So I don't really have a whole lot to upload, but whatever, these full documents are, let's see. So since my opportunity is linked to my room, I can attach files directly from DocuSign. That's really the main reason I recommend it. It's just because the two of these can talk to each other, but you do have a My Computer option. So if you need to just download these and upload them that way, you can. DocuSign is the easiest way. So I would scroll through my working with real estate agents. I would drop down. I'll have to do this a different way. So since none of mine are signed, I have to toggle on include DocuSign forms. You won't do that. The forms are the blank version, so you don't want to upload those. But I just need something to kind of show you what it looks like. So working with real estate agents, I would just choose it and I would add it into my room. And it's that easy. Once it's in here, you can click on it, you can open it up. You don't have to, do anything with it. Exclusive right to represent buyer. I pop that in. Professional services disclosure. You pop in everything that you have. KW disclosure form. And it's a lot easier than having to add it from your computer, find it in your computer, and just upload it that way. So, what's all those? Do I have my offered purchase? Let's add my offered purchase. So it just makes it a little bit easier. It's a lot quicker. Once they're in there, you're good to go. You do have to submit this to us. So does anybody know when you need to submit this to us? What the rule is? So this is a buyer. I'm sorry? As soon as possible, yeah, that's good. But 48 hours within a fully executed contract. That means that it has been signed by both parties. It needs to be submitted to us. You're not going to have every single form needed for the transaction, and we understand that. Trisha's not going to go in and yell at you because you don't have every single thing within 48 hours. But once the contract is fully executed, you have 48 hours to submit it to us. That's not our rule. It's a commission rule. So it's not us just being annoying. If it's a listing folder, you have 48 hours within a signed listing agreement to submit it to us. Same thing with that. That's just your listing folder. So you're not going to have an under contract folder, even in the works at all, if it's a brand new listing. Well, in today's market, you might, but listings, 48 hours within a fully signed listing agreement, under contract, 48 hours within a signed offer to purchase. And then so I'm not going to submit it because I don't want Trisha to look at this, but you'll hit submit to MC. At that point, you cannot delete any of these documents out. You do have the option, like I can remove this now that it's not submitted, it's still in open status. But once I submit it, instead of remove, it's going to have replace. Weird. So I submitted it, we'll pretend. Or if at any point you have any questions, you have these three little dots here. You can add comment to checklist, and that will give you the ability to message us. So there is a messaging function and command. It's tied to each opportunity. So if I type the @ which is what you want to do every time, this message right here is really important, because if I wanted to message Renee and ask her, does this contract look okay? You can do this within here. But if I just start typing without, it's not going to go to any of us. If you tag us, it's going to pop up as a notification in our bell, and we're going to know that we need to look at it. Otherwise, we're never going to see it unless we just stumble upon and start randomly looking at things, which doesn't happen often. That's the three dots, and then add comment to checklist. Once there's a message sent, you'll have a little message icon over here. This is just a new thing, and I don't really like it. I don't know why add comment to checklist, but it doesn't really make any sense. It used to be like send message here, but we're just going with it. The fun thing with Command, once you get used to where everything is and it's working, they change something. So don't freak out. So from that is submitting your documents. Unfortunately, you know, it doesn't end there. If you do want to get paid, there is another step. This is just submitting everything for compliance. To actually get paid, Valerie kindly made us this little how to get paid in Command. If you click on this, it's going to be a whole lot of words, so don't freak out. But this is kind of how to get paid as soon as possible. So the best practice when doing this, when you submit this to us, so you're 48 hours after your executed contract, go into this offers and commissions tab, and you're going to start the process for filling out your commission tab. So we're going to add new offer. You can call it whatever you want. If this is a listing, you can add in as many offers as you have, and you can use this to kind of show your sellers what they have to choose from. This is a buyer, you're just going to have one. So initial offer, create offer. You're going to pop in things like offer date, close date, address. This one's tricky because if it's new construction, it's usually not going to work. So if you pop in something like, something random, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Fred Flintstone that doesn't exist, you can hit create manually, and that will let you pop it in. Because some new construction, you know, it's not on Google Maps yet, and that's fine. You can also select from KWLS, which is just the list, the MLS. So if I open this and I go to all listings, I could pull it from the MLS. But since our office is not on the MLS, I'm just going to choose it in here. I'm going to go on to parties. So your buyer is going to pop in here. This is coming from his contacts, seller. Over my name, and then representation. The bare minimum, you need the seller name and then who the cross sale agent is. Terms, what I want you to focus on here is this. So you have cash amount plus finance amount is going to equal your sales price. So I'll just put in 175,000 for finance amount, which gives me 175,000 for the sales price. This needs to match what's on your contract, basically. If you want to put in earnest amount, option fee, I don't know that North Carolina does an option fee, termination option, seller costs, go for it. Or if you just want to get through it, you need to at least have this number right here. Agent analysis, pros and cons of the other agent, summary of them, basically, and save. It's pretty easy. It's really just terms of the deal and a little bit of details about the other agent. Once you input it here, so like I said, if you have a lot of these for a listing, this is a good thing to just show your sellers, and they can see everything kind of laid out. Since this is a buyer, you're going to accept the one that you're going with. And then that is going to give you the option to manage commission. So if I click on manage commission, this sheet is what Valerie imports into her system, and it's what tells her how much that you need to be paid. This is pretty accurate to a certain degree. There's certain situations where it's not completely accurate, but Valerie's system is smarter than this, and it will override whatever it needs to. I need to put in my contract date. This is coming, I'll give you a hint. This is coming from details. So if I put in a contract date right there, let's just put one in. It's going to put it in there. Okay, where this gets kind of tricky, it really just depends on your own individual situation. There are a few things that can kind of happen when doing a commissions sheet. The main one that I'm sure a lot of you are focused on is what if I'm in PC? So to pay the PC fee, you go to edit agent payment. And then the PC fee is going to be at the bottom, extra payment options. You're going to add item. And then the type is going to be deduction. So your amount, you have to figure this out yourself. So it is 10% of the gross commission, which in my case is $5,250. So I would put in $525. Ignore this. You don't have to put anything in there. Description would be coaching. Pay to would be either Renee or Shauna, depending on when you came into the program and who helped you. Shauna is no longer the PC coach. Renee took over. I have zero track of time ever since 2020. Maybe like a month ago, she started over as the coach. Address, you can put in our office address. You can see what it looks like. And then phone number. You can just put in that information. We're going to add. And then you will see it pops up right here, coaching. So if I save changes, it's also going to show up under other deductions over here, and it will give you a rough idea of what you're going to get paid. So it's taking out the royalty, company commissions, additional deductions, and then other deductions. So that's kind of situation one. If you're in PC, you're always going to have that, or until you get out of PC, obviously. Something else that also happens, let me see who all is on here. Okay, so if you're on a team or if you are doing a referral to an agent in our market center, you are going to edit your payment to, so if you're doing a 50-50 split, you would change your units to 0.5. Make sure you hit calculate commission because it's going to give you an error if you don't. This is always in my way. I hate to. And save changes. You can add another agent. So this is anybody in our market center. So if I'm splitting this 50-50 with Renee, she would have the 0.5, she would up the other part of the commission. I would save changes. And then now you can see my payment amount, you can see her payment amount, and you can see all of that over here on this side. And it's still deducting out my $525 for coaching. So obviously, if that's the case, if you are splitting this with somebody in the market center, or if it's a referral, pull the 10% off of your gross commission. So not the $5,250, it would be $262.50 at this point. Another situation, get her out of there. It's hard to default this all. And then, if this situation ever arises and you're confused on how to do this, please come see me. It's not hard. It's just, there's so many different kind of ways that this can be filled out. But if you are doing a referral to an outside agent, so not in our market center, I just want you, really what I want to focus on, this ad co-broker payment, you are never, ever, 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 ever going to use. We do not do that in North Carolina. What it is, I don't know if they teach anybody this in school, but the listing firm gets the full 6% and they cut the check to the other side. So in North Carolina, buyer side gets a check, listing side gets a check. So co-broker payment, you're never going to use. An outside referral is also under edit agent payment. It's very similar to the way that you do your PC deduction. You would add item for extra payment options. And this one would be an outside referral. This one, you can just plug in your percentage and it'll calculate it. Tax ID type is usually going to be EIN, and it's going to come directly from the W-9. So this is that little form that has, their EIN number, their business name, and you want to fill this out based on what is in there. Don't just put in random information because Valerie's not going to be able to import it. I know I said that this needs to be done the same day that you submit to our market center. This is kind of your one exception. If you don't have the W-9, wait until you get it and then fill this out. So once this is ready to go, you have, whatever situation you have in here, you can hit submit. I'll submit it because tomorrow we'll send it back. It's going to ask you about KW Cares and KW Kids Can, and if you would like to donate to either, so choose your amount, or you can hit skip donation and submit. And you can see what status it's in. So if it's in submitted, that means that Samara and I have not approved it yet. Usually Samara is the one who checks these. If she's gone, I'll do them, but I can give you a cheat sheet. What we check for, we look at the sales price and we check your contract. If they don't match, we send you a message. Obviously, if they do match, we just send you on to Valerie. If they don't match, we are either going to ask for an amendment, or if this is the correct amount. So if this is wrong and you just got it wrong, we can send it back to you. But that's really just what we look at. Sometimes if I know you're in PC and you didn't put a fee, I might have some questions. Usually I kind of just let Valerie deal with that since she's the money person. But we just want to make sure this matches. And I'll also look, like if you put in an ad co-broker payment instead of an outside referral, I might send a few messages just because it holds up Valerie, and I love Valerie and I don't want her held up. So that's what we look for. Once this is imported, it'll be green and it'll say imported. You cannot change this. So I don't know if there's a way for me to get it back. No. So it used to be once you submitted it, you could still change it, but at this point you can't. And I realize that a lot of people wait to do this because, you know, you might have a price change. You might have a change in the closing date. That's fine. That's going to happen. Whenever something like that happens, you cannot change this. What you can do is come into documents, go to your add comment to checklist, tag Valerie and tell her that the price has changed to, you know, $170,000, and she can change it in her system. Or tell her that closing is being pushed back a month. She will change that. If it terminates, you can hit request termination. And then wait forever. Okay, and then it'll terminate, and then, you know, we won't do anything in our system. What you don't want to hit terminate for is anything other than a termination, basically. So if the sales price changes, if you forgot the PC fee, do not terminate it. It just makes it more work on your end, because then you have to go through this whole process and submit a new commission. So just message Valerie. It's a whole lot easier for her to change it in her system than for you to go through this and redo it. So once you're done with that, really what happens, you'll keep uploading documents as you have them. Trisha will go through and she'll just start from here, and she'll click through and she'll approve them or she'll reject them. If she rejects them, she'll give you a reason why. And then you're under contract. You can see right now it's open. That means nobody's looked at it. So it can go to returned, you have changed, resubmitted, and then you have approved, which is obviously what you want. Once it's approved and this is closed, if you come in this closed folder, the only thing you really need to pay attention to is the closed MLS sheet. That's the only thing you need to add. DA disbursement authorization is something that Valerie adds in that shows how much you get paid versus how much the market center gets paid. You don't have to put anything in there. Copy of closing checks and documents. That's just what the attorney gives you. So the commission check and then the CD. Agent referral, etc. checks is what Valerie will upload when she started to process your checks. And then you'll know that you're going to get one soon. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.